And we are back again. Here we are, week 4 of the 2024 outdoor season for the NCAA Division 1. And we had a bit of a quiet weekend, not any major meets, but we did have some impressive performances and we did have some number one marks. We had a total of 6 new number one marks, and we had a reminder that we still had a champion that was returning that it looked like they weren't returning. And so, in this recap, I just want to talk about the weekend that was, and also talk about the framing of an outdoor season for collegiate track and field. And so, our first leg, we normally start with sprints and hurdles, and there was only one new time in the sprints and hurdles, and it was a hurdler. Clement Dukas of Tennessee took over the number one spot in the 400 hurdles with a time of 49:03. And that is a name we have not mentioned, but we can't ignore the school and the coaching. University of Tennessee and under coach Dwayne Ross. And this is actually his first big men's 400 hurdler that we've seen at Tennessee. He's obviously had an array of talented hurdlers at A&T. I mean, thinking of Corey Poole and a host of others, but this is his first big 400 hurdler here at Tennessee, and that's a pretty solid time. It just looks like things are moving in the right direction under Coach Ross. If you saw the performances from this past weekend, maybe no new number one marks nationally, but what we saw was some impressive improvement from that program on both the men's and women's side. And then we'll move real quickly to our second leg, which is the jumps. And there was only one new number one mark here, and that was Lamara Diston of Texas A&M. Believe it or not, we've not mentioned her name since the NCAA preview, the indoor championship preview. So we're talking a month. It's been a while since we've spoken of her. But she reminded us this weekend that she is still here. We can't forget that she is the collegiate indoor record holder. She is a 2 meter jumper, and she took the number one spot this past weekend on her home field at Texas A&M in the high jump with a mark of 6 feet 5, 1.96 meters. We know she's a 2 meter jumper, so for her to debut her outdoor season almost at her personal best, that's a solid sign that, she's probably likely been refocusing on trying to reclaim her title. We've yet to see Rachel Glenn. We'll probably be seeing her in a couple weeks, but it's been a slow between these two to get the outdoor season started. I think obviously because we expect for them to be competing for their nation's Olympic team. Glenn for Team USA and Distant for Jamaica. And I think they'll both do well at their own Olympic trials. So that's a really solid start for Distant. And this Texas A&M team, as we're getting outdoors, we're realizing, this is probably a very versatile group. And they really may be team title contenders because they probably can score in, bunches in a lot of events and score high. Again, we're not doing team title projections yet, and as we're seeing, athletes are very slow to come out this outdoor season with it being an Olympic year. So I think there's been some resting, some retraining, some refocusing on more important things than just the regular season. But I don't think we can ignore a mark like that, and I don't think we can ignore Texas A&M. They had a pretty good weekend. And then we'll turn to our third leg, which is the throwing events. And yes, we're already at the third leg. We're barely even 5 minutes in, but that's okay. Um, Jada Ross of Oregon. We've mentioned her name before, but it's been a very long time. This is a very talented thrower. It's nice to see her name mentioned again, especially with the mark. She had a great throw of 64 feet, 8 inches, 19.71 meters. She is the only thrower in the nation to have gone over 19 meters so far. She has a pretty strong distance between her and number two, and that's a very solid mark for this time in the season and for it to kind of be her outdoor debut of sorts. I think we need to continue to evolve in this conversation of the throwers. You know, I really had it Maya Lesner, Jelani of Colorado State, Jelani Davis of Ole Miss, and Alita Vandalen of Florida. But Jada Ross needs to be in that conversation when you can throw a 19-meter throw, a 64-foot throw in April. she's going to get better. There's going to be an improvement on that mark. So we need to include her in this conversation, even when there was initially no plans to have that. That's a great mark. And also in the throwing, we'll look at the discus. You have Alita Van Dalen of Florida. Things didn't go the way she wanted in the shot put indoors, but here she is outdoors in her premier event. The discus, 204 feet, 2 inches, or 62.23 meters. A big throw, big time mark, leading the Florida throws group, and that is a really solid win for her. She was second in the overall competition, um, only losing to a professional, but for a collegiate athlete, she was number one, and that is a really good throw. And we know what Van Dalen is capable of. And now, this being her sophomore season, I am actually comfortable right here, right now, to say I still think she is the favorite to win the discus. Our next event is a champion that I did not think was coming back. Her name wasn't initially listed on the roster for the 2024 season, and I thought, oh, she's probably turned pro, and that's Rima Odebor of Nebraska, the defending champion in the javelin. She came back had at the Jim Click shootout in Arizona for Nebraska, and threw 191 feet 10 inches, or 58.47 meters. What a strong debut for the outdoor season. And welcome back, defending champ. And I am willing to admit I did not include her in the preview because, again, I thought she had turned pro. Her name was not even listed on their roster, and it's a welcome sight to see such a talented athlete come back. And I'm hoping to see, and I know I'm pushing it here, but can we see a 200-foot throw from a javelin thrower? I mean, she's had 195 before. I'm curious to see what she does. I think that this immediately moves her into the driver's seat. She is a defending champ, and she's starting her season off with a bang. Welcome, welcome back, Rima Odebor. And our last athlete we'll discuss today is Tamara Chapman of Texas A&M in the heptathlon. They have two very good heptathletes. 6,219 points for Tamara Chapman. She had a very solid performance on her home field. We'll say Texas A&M's 44 Farms Team Invitational. 6,219 points. She was impressive. And keep in mind, that's after we've seen a performance from Christine Blazovica, Charity Huff-Nagel, and a host of other talented heptathletes. We got to include her now in the discussion too. And she was not even mentioned, not even thought of, but this past weekend she had such a great performance. She, won the 100-meter hurdles. She was second in the high jump. She won the shot put, second in the 200. She won the long jump, and her long jump mark is 21 feet. So this is not someone who's playing around. She won the javelin, and she was second in the 800. That's actually her weakest event, the 800. But she is strong in every other event. You heard me say first or second. And even the 800, which is not her strongest event, 224, she was still second in the competition. I just want to put that out there. We cannot ignore this young lady. I mean, 140 feet in the javelin, 21 feet in the long jump, 24.2 in the 200, 44 feet in the shot, 5'10" and a half in the high jump, 13.5 in the high hurdles, which will probably be lower. I mean, she's at Texas A&M, so she's getting good coaching in the hurdles. This young lady is really talented. 6,219 points. She's got almost 600 more points than Christine Blazovica of Texas. So we're going to be hearing her name for a while, and we should be giving her a serious look. So shout out to her, and shout out for Texas A&M. The top two heptathletes in the country are their athletes. I'm pretty sure we're going to be seeing some great performances later on in this season, but we can't ignore we have our first 6,000 plus point performance. Tamara Chapman, welcome to the championship chat, because we are going to be including you in that. And moving to our anchor leg, I wanted to talk about the framing of an outdoor season. The indoor season is really intense. There's always something going on week after week after week, unless it's, the week before the indoor championships where there's no activity. Outdoors, we go through these lulls of either there's no big performances, no number ones, or it's a very extremely quiet weekend. How does that help or does it harm the sport? I have to actually say, I think it does help. We have to look at how our sport is framed and how it can be shared. We cannot expect for it to perform kind of like a basketball where there's maybe 2 games a week. There will be no 2 games a week. Even in football, there is a competition every weekend, but they have a bye week. So we're going to run into that collective bye week. And I'm not going to call this past weekend a bye week of, where there was nothing because we just talked about some great new number one marks, but it was a bye week of sorts. And so we need to be prepared for those moments where the sport is kind of resting or taking a back seat, and that's okay. But when it's on, it needs to be on. And that's kind of the focus moving forward, or it should be. This past weekend, having, the 6 number 1 performances instead of the 10 or the 12 or the 15 that we may have wanted is an okay thing. We're going to have those weekends. But we have some good competition coming up this past weekend and next weekend. The next couple weekends, we have great competition coming. I mean, we have the Georgia Tech Invitational. We have Penn Relays at the end of the month. You have Mount Sac Relays, which is the weekend before. And so this weekend and the coming weekends, for probably about the next 4 weekends in a row, we're looking at some pretty good competition. So I want to talk about some of the meets that are coming so that way we can understand, okay, we all need to be participants in making sure that we promote our sport so that way we can see it treated better. We can actually see it more on television or streaming, and it's not a streaming platform behind a wall. And just a record of note, Jada Ross's throw is actually an NCAA record. So let's just put that out there. Shout out to Jada Ross. I can't believe we didn't think to include her, but we had our big three: Alita Van Dalen, uh, Maya Lesnar of Colorado State, and Jelani Davis of Ole Miss. But Jada Ross is now in the conversation. But I'm curious to see what will be the response from Maya Lesnar. She was the indoor champion. She has been labeled the favorite, not just by me, but pretty much by everyone. But Jada Ross said, "Hello, I'm here." So, all right. So coming up this weekend, where we look at what will be pretty significant weekend in that we still have some great meets. We have the Tom Jones Memorial Classic at the University of Florida. That's going to bring in some great competition, and it will be live broadcast on the SEC network, which is actually, a huge positive. You have the Little Rock Invite. Um, let's see, because there is some great competition that's going to happen. You have the UCLA Invitational. And with it being obviously in LA, it's going to attract a lot of that great West Coast talent. So we're looking at some great marks there. But those are the two big meets that I think that we are going to be subject to great performances from. The Tom Jones Memorial Classic, the past couple of years has always produced at least one or two new number one marks. So that shouldn't change. I actually expect for that to be pretty much par for the course again. That's been a great meet. I always look forward to it. You have also keep in mind you have the Cerritos Invitational in Norwalk, California. With it being a California meet, there's a great chance that it'll draw in some competition. The big this is meet, the Brian Clay Invitational at Azusa Pacific. That has been a really big meet, and it's grown over the years, and that's actually going to be broadcasted live by FlowTrack. So some great meets. Again, you have the Brian Clay, the Tom Jones Memorial Classic, and then the other big meet. Let me scroll to it. The UCLA Invitational. Um, the Legends meet. So plenty to look forward to. Also, don't forget the Boston Marathon is a week from today, and that's going to be broadcast live on ESPN2. You know, that's not, a collegiate meet, but want to hype up the sport when we can. So I'm looking forward to what should be a pretty solid weekend. We should have a much more in-depth conversation next week, but I want to know your opinions on what you think about track and field having a collective bye week or just having a week that's off. What did we learn? What did you learn? Please share your comments, feedback. Again, the comment section is open. Please like, share, and subscribe. And I thank you so much for your support, and I look forward to talking with you again soon. Thanks, guys.